The Founding Fathers created the judicial branch in Article 3 of the Constitution to be the third pillar of government alongside the legislative and executive branches. One of the Founding Fathers, Alexander Hamilton, thought of the judicial branch as the least dangerous branch because it has neither force nor will. The only power the branch has is the power of judgment. The purpose of this branch is to keep others from having too much power. In America's judicial system, judges have a passive role. Instead of seeking out cases, they have to wait for a dispute to be brought to them. The judicial branch is an adversarial system, basically a legal battle between two sides. The plaintiff, who is accusing the defendant, and the judge is a neutral force, ensuring that the fight is fair. An important detail about this system is that every accused is innocent until proven guilty. America is also very litigious, meaning citizens often use the system to solve private disputes. Even though the Constitution started the judicial branch, the structure that we use today actually came from Congress in the Judiciary Act of 1789. There are 3 levels to the American judicial system. The bottom level is the trial level. There are 94 district courts where cases begin. These courts have original jurisdiction, which is the right to hear a case first. The next level is the circuit level. There are 12 circuits and they have an appellate jurisdiction, which means they don't hear new evidence, but they review to see if the trial court made any mistakes. The top level is the Supreme Court. It has 9 justices who have the final word on the Constitution. The appointment process for this branch is a big part of checks and balances. Instead of being voted on by citizens, judges are nominated by the president. Then the Senate, from the legislative branch, must approve them. Under Article 3, Section 1 of the Constitution, judges serve for life, as long as they have good behavior, that is. This keeps the judges from having to worry about political pressure or the fear of being fired under new administration. If the judge violates the good behavior, the legislative branch can impeach them and they will be removed. The power of the judicial review is the ability to determine if a law or a presidential action is unconstitutional. This power isn't actually written in the Constitution. It was made in the 1803 court case of Marbury v. Madison. This is so powerful because the judicial branch has the ultimate power to keep the president and Congress in check. On the president, they can strike down executive acts if they don't deem them unconstitutional, and on Congress, they can strike down laws.
Hi, my name is Ashlyn and I did the executive branch. The 3 topics that I'll be discussing is how individuals get elected in office, jobs and responsibilities under the Constitution, and how the executive branch plays a significant role in separation of powers and checks and balances. So, starting off, we have how individuals get elected in office. Basically, individuals in the executive branch, especially people like the president, are not elected directly in a simple popular vote. Instead, the process is an indirect election system centered on the Electoral College. The president is chosen through the Electoral College, which is an indirect election system, and voters technically vote for electors pledged to candidates. The majority of electoral votes is required to win, and most executive branches officials are appointed by the president, which is often with Senate approval, and it's not based off of being elected. Moving on, we have jobs and responsibilities under the Constitution. The executive branch is responsible for executing laws. National executives lead their country and they have multiple different roles and power in making laws and policies. The president also can propose and encourage as well as veto legislation under the Constitution. And the president also receives ambassadors and public officials, executes the laws, and commissions all officers of the United States. Then we have how the executive branch plays a significant role in separation of powers and checks and balances. Basically, the separation of powers is the executive branch enforcing laws and operating independently from the legislative and judicial branches. Checks by the executive is a part of how the president can veto laws and influence policy and nominate judges and grant pardons and a bunch of other stuff like that. versus the checks on the executive are Congress being able to override vetoes and confirm appointments and impeach the president, while courts can declare executive action unconstitutionally. The balance of power, which is the last and final thing to wrap this up, is that the executive both checks other balances while also being checked by them. And this just ensures that no branch becomes too powerful and makes sure that everywhere is all level and equal. Up next is Lindsay, and she will be focusing on the legislative branch.
Hi, my name is Lindsay. I'm going to be doing the legislative branch. So I'm going to be going over the structure and the core functions. The legislative branch is one of the 3 pillars of the United States government, and its primary job is to make the laws that guide the nation. At the heart of this branch is Congress, which is divided into 2 chambers, a system known as bicameralism. This 2-house structure was created during the Constitutional Convention as part of the Great Compromise. It balances the interest of both large and small states, and then Congress consists of the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives has 435 members with representation based on each state's population. Because members serve only 2-year terms, the House is designed to be more responsive to the public opinion and the needs of local committees. And then in contrast, the Senate only has 100 members, with each state receiving equal representation, so 2 senators each. Senators serve a 6-year term, which allows them to focus on more long-term national issues and stability. The primary responsibility of Congress is lawmaking. Members of Congress introduce bills, which are proposed laws. These bills are often shaped by input from constituents, interest groups, and the realities of political negotiation. Lawmaking is not a simple process. It requires compromise, debate, and cooperation between different perspectives. Another key function of the legislative branch is representation. Members of Congress are elected to speak and act on behalf of the people. Representatives focus on specific districts, while senators represent each state. Lawmakers may take on different approaches to representation. Some act as delegates, closely following the wishes of their voters, while others act as trustees, using their own judgment to make decisions they believe are in the public's best interest. So how does a bill actually become a law? The legislative process begins when a bill is introduced in either chamber. It is then sent to a committee, which is where it is carefully reviewed. Committees can play a crucial role. They can revise, approve, or reject bills. If a bill makes it through a committee, it must be passed by both the House and the Senate in identical form. Once both chambers agree, the bill will be sent to the president, who can either sign it or veto it. However, Congress can override a veto with a 2/3 vote in both chambers. Beyond lawmaking, Congress plays a vital role in maintaining checks and balances within the government. It has the power to limit the other branches. For example, the House of Representatives can impeach federal officials, and the Senate would then conduct the trial. The Senate also has the authority to approve presidential appointments. Additionally, Congress holds several key constitutional powers. It controls taxation and government spending, often called as the power of the purse. It regulates commerce and has the authority to declare war. In summary, the legislative branch is essential to American democracy. Through its structure, lawmaking, responsibilities, and systems of checks and balances, it ensures that the voices of the people are heard and that the power within the government remains balanced. The next person speaking will be Riley, and she is going over linkage institutions.
Hi, my name is Riley, and today I'll be talking about linkage institutions. Linkage institutions act as a bridge between the government and citizens within a democracy. It gives American citizens an opportunity to use their First Amendment right and have a voice on what goes on in their country. It keeps the president from having too much power or creating a dictatorship. The 3 linkage institutions I'll be talking about today, and that are most seen in the U.S., are political parties, interest groups, and the media. So, political parties are organizations that wish to influence and change policy in order to get their own people that fit in that specific political group, especially the presidency. So, we see Democrat, Republican, Independent, different voting political parties. So, you have a candidate that runs for both parties to represent that specific group. So they do this by nominating candidates and allowing them to accumulate citizen votes and win elections. Interest groups are groups that unite people with shared policy goals to influence government decisions through lobbying and sometimes form iron triangles. Iron triangles are a mutual beneficial three-way relationship in U.S. politics between congressional committees and interest groups. The media is the last linkage institution, and this informs the public, monitors government activity, and shapes public opinion by selecting which stories to cover and influencing perceptions. So anything like news channels, anything you see on Facebook, Instagram, social media apps, sometimes these things are to persuade our opinions and our outlook on things that go on around us. That sums up the linkage institutions. Now on to Audrey Jennings for Citizens.
Hello, my name is Audrey Jennings, and today I will be talking about the role of citizens in the U.S. government. The United States is a democracy, and a democracy, the government is the citizens. Popular sovereignty is the principle that there is no power higher than the people, and the Constitution is the document that establishes the authority in the United States. Citizens choose members for the House of Representatives. The people choose who they feel will best represent them and their needs. The U.S. Constitution states this in Article 1, Section 2. The Constitution allows for the president to be chosen through the Electoral College. Citizens vote for a slate of electors who cast their vote for the presidential candidate. The U.S. Constitution states this in Article 2, Section 1. Now the Electoral College tends to choose the presidential candidate with the most popular vote. Civil liberties are individual freedoms that place limitations on the power of the government. The Constitution does provide some very specific rights, such as habeas corpus, bills of attainder, and ex post facto laws. These are stated in the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 9. Habeas corpus is the right for citizens to be brought before a judge and be notified of all charges against them. The national and state governments are both not allowed to pass bills of attainder, which are laws that single out a person or group as guilty and impose punishment without trial. The governments cannot pass ex post facto laws either, which are laws that make an action a crime after the fact, even though it was legal when carried out. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, and they grant citizens rights at a federal level. This is from Barber and Wright, 2025. The United States Constitution can be amended. There are very many amendments that are very important, but some I will talk about today are the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 13th Amendment officially abolished slavery and involuntary servitude in the United States. The 14th Amendment granted all those born in the U.S. citizenship and guaranteed equal protection and due process of law. The 15th Amendment guarantees that federal and state government cannot deny a citizen the right to vote based on their race, color, or previous servitude. Jim Crow laws obeyed the letter of the 15th Amendment by never outright saying that they denied Black people the right to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. In Plessy v. Ferguson, the court decided that enforced separation of the races didn't mean one race was inferior to the other, as long as both facilities were equal. In Brown v. Board of Education, the court ruled on the side of Brown, but didn't explicitly denounce segregation or Plessy. They decided that separation in schools could never be equal because it was segregation that made them unequal. Many were against the outcome of the case, and white parents rioted. It took 1,000 federal agents sent by the president to ensure the safety of 9 Black children to enter the school. The Brown case served as a catalyst for the Civil Rights Movement. Thank you for listening to our presentation.